When we think about justice, we often imagine courtrooms, judges, and written laws. But sometimes, the deepest questions about justice begin with a simple story. Imagine a runaway trolley speeding down a track. 5 workers are ahead, unable to escape. You can turn the trolley onto another track, but there is one worker there. Do you act, or do you refrain? This thought experiment has been used for decades in philosophy classrooms to explore how ordinary people think about right and wrong. It is not about trains. It is about us. It is about the weight of choice, the burden of responsibility, and the moral calculations we make in moments of crisis. The power of the scenario lies in its simplicity. There are no complex backstories, no hidden motives, just a stark decision. Yet from this simplicity emerges a storm of disagreement. Some people focus on numbers, others focus on principles. And in that divide, we begin to see 2 powerful traditions of moral reasoning that have shaped human thought for centuries. In many classrooms, when students are asked what they would do, a majority say they would turn the trolley. Their reasoning is straightforward. Saving 5 lives seems better than losing 5 lives. If one tragic loss can prevent 5, then perhaps that is the lesser evil. This way of thinking evaluates actions by their outcomes. It asks, what result will produce the greatest overall good? It feels practical, even compassionate. The emotional discomfort remains, but the arithmetic seems clear. 5 is greater than 1. The decision appears painful but rational. This instinct reveals something important about human psychology. When confronted with clear numerical differences, many of us lean toward minimizing total harm. We may not use philosophical language, but we instinctively perform a moral calculation. In that moment, morality feels like a matter of consequences, of weighing suffering against survival, and choosing the path that leaves fewer families grieving at the end of the day. However, the discussion becomes more complicated when the scenario changes slightly. Imagine now that you are not the driver. You are standing on a bridge above the tracks. The trolley is still headed toward 5 workers. Beside you stands a large man leaning over the railing. If you push him onto the tracks, his body will stop the trolley, saving the 5 below. In this version, most people hesitate. The numbers are identical, 1 life versus 5, but the emotional reaction shifts dramatically. Why? This variation forces us to confront the difference between redirecting harm and directly causing it. Many people feel that physically pushing someone to their death crosses a moral line, even if the outcome saves more lives. The act feels personal, intentional, and violent in a way that pulling a lever does not. The discomfort reveals that consequences are not the only thing that matter to us. The character of the action itself seems morally significant. This tension introduces 2 major approaches to ethics: consequentialist reasoning and categorical reasoning. Consequentialism judges actions by their outcomes. If an action produces the best overall result, it is considered morally right. The most famous version of this theory is utilitarianism, associated with the 18th century philosopher Jeremy Bentham. Bentham argued that human beings are governed by pleasure and pain, and that moral decisions should aim to maximize overall happiness. His famous formula, the greatest good for the greatest number, captures the essence of this view. From this perspective, turning the trolley makes sense. It reduces total suffering. The emotional difficulty does not disappear, but the guiding principle remains clear: maximize well-being. Utilitarianism offers a structured, almost mathematical way to approach moral dilemmas. It promises clarity in situations where emotions might otherwise overwhelm judgment. On the other side stands categorical moral reasoning, most famously defended by the German philosopher Immanuel Kant. Kant argued that morality is not about calculating outcomes, but about following moral duties that apply universally. According to this view, certain actions, like intentionally killing an innocent person, are wrong in themselves, regardless of the consequences. In the bridge scenario, pushing the man feels wrong because it treats him as a means to an end rather than as an end in himself. For Kant, human beings possess intrinsic dignity. They cannot simply be used as tools to achieve better results. This perspective resonates deeply with many people's moral intuitions. Even when the numbers favor sacrifice, the deliberate act of killing feels like a violation of something fundamental. In this way, categorical reasoning challenges the idea that good outcomes automatically justify harmful actions. The conflict between these 2 moral frameworks does not remain confined to classroom thought experiments. It appears in real-world legal cases as well. One famous example is the 19th-century British case of R.V. Dudley and Stephens. In this case, sailors stranded at sea without food eventually killed and ate a cabin boy to survive. When rescued, they argued that necessity justified their actions. The logic was brutally utilitarian. Sacrificing one life allowed others to live. Yet the court rejected this defense. The judges ruled that necessity was not a valid excuse for murder. This decision reflected a categorical commitment. Even in extreme circumstances, certain acts cannot be justified by appealing to survival alone. The case sparked intense debate that continues in law schools today. It forces us to ask whether moral principles should bend in desperate situations or remain firm even when lives are at stake. What makes these dilemmas so powerful is not that they provide easy answers, but that they expose the complexity of our moral thinking. We often move back and forth between consequentialist and categorical instincts without even realizing it. In some cases, we count lives. In others, we defend inviolable rights. Our judgments shift depending on context, emotion, and perspective. This internal tension is not a weakness. It is a reflection of the richness of moral life. Philosophy does not invent these conflicts. It simply brings them to the surface. By examining our reactions, we begin to see the assumptions guiding our decisions. We discover that our moral landscape is shaped by both compassion for outcomes and respect for principles. Studying moral philosophy can feel unsettling because it challenges beliefs we once held without question. When familiar intuitions are placed under scrutiny, certainty can fade. Yet this discomfort is part of intellectual growth. The goal is not to eliminate disagreement, but to understand it more clearly. When we analyze cases like the trolley problem or historic survival trials, we are not merely engaging in abstract debate. We are reflecting on the kind of society we want to build and the values we want to defend. Moral reasoning shapes laws, public policy, and everyday choices. Whether we realize it or not, we live out answers to these philosophical questions daily. In the end, the debate between consequences and principles remains unresolved, and perhaps it always will be. But that does not make the discussion pointless. On the contrary, the persistence of these questions suggests their importance. We may never achieve perfect agreement, yet the process of questioning sharpens our understanding of justice. It encourages humility, empathy, and critical thinking. The runaway trolley may be fictional, but the moral crossroads it represents are real. Each time we face a difficult decision, we stand on that bridge or hold that lever. The challenge is not simply to choose, but to understand why we choose, and what that choice reveals about who we are.